Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to this week's Staff CPD session. My name is Nikki Kimball. I am one of the educational consultants here at Just2Easy, and you are here for Digital Profiling Made Easy, J2Journal for Reflective Practice. So in this session, we are going to be covering J2Journal and the parent portal as part of the wider J2Journal offerings. So a little bit of session housekeeping as always. It is a 60-minute session. So we will be finished by 4:30. If for any reason you need to head off at any time, don't worry, just press the leave button. I will be recording this session and hopefully I will have it on YouTube later on this evening, so you can either revisit and pick up where you left off, or you can refer colleagues that you might have to this session if you think they will find it useful. Questions can be asked via the chat function, which I have open on my second screen, which is what I keep looking at to my right. So if you do have any questions throughout the session, please feel free to type them into the chat. I will be doing a Q&A session at the end of the session as well, so I will open the floor, so you're more than welcome at that point to unmute your mics or pop it in the chat, and we will cover all those questions that you might have. This tends to be a session with a lot of questions, so I am fully prepared for that, don't worry. Right, as part of our parent portal and J2Journal session, we're going to be having a look at, first of all, I flipped my sessions, so I'm going to be showing you where you can access further support. So I think that's really important. There's been a few sort of rejigs over the summer, so I'm going to signpost you for further support off the bat. Then we're going to have a look at J2Journal. So J2Journal and the parent portal can be used independent of each other. Okay, but I'm going to show you within the context of using it together, but we're going to have a look at J2Journal first of all. We'll have an overview and we'll cover creating a new journal, adding new content and creating folders. And then I'm going to showcase some new features that we've got, which include tagging against curriculum frameworks, the J2 review provision, and also our brand new generating printable reports, which may well be music to everybody's ears, and a few other things that we've got in the pipeline that are going to be coming out shortly. Then I'm going to flip over to the parent portal. And again, I'm going to give you an overview of that to begin with. Oh my goodness, the doorbell's going. I'm going to give you an overview of the parent portal. And as part of that, I'm going to show you what the parents can see using the parent portal, and also setting up your school's parent portal. So using the Just2Easy settings and J2 dashboard, personalizing those parent portal settings. The parents view the portal, including the overview and adjusting parental settings and notifications, so how you can advise them on how switching on their notifications. And then finally, we're going to look at the teacher view, and as part of that, we're going to look at using a J2 message to message parents. So a very busy session, and then questions at the end. And for those of you that have just come in, if you do have any questions, please feel free to add them into the chat as we go along. I will try and get to them, but as I've said, I've got that questions and answers section at the end of the session, should you need it. Okay, so first of all, as promised, I'm going to signpost you to all the extra support we have available. Now, you may or may not have noticed this appear on your Launchpad. We do have the teachers area, which is our brand new tile. It only appeared shortly before the summer. And this is a one-stop shop for all you teachers out there. The clue is in the name. It is only for teachers, so your pupils won't have access to this particular tile, but it is here. And within the teachers area, you will find a getting started area. So if you're brand new to the site, have a look at that. We've also got lots and lots of training which you can book, and that is the what's on area, and also our live lessons are in there as well. So we are doing weekly live lessons. This week's is Signs of Autumn, so creating autumnal pictures in JIT Paint, so you can book on for all of our training and live lessons there. All of our training and live lessons are also recorded and available in the Just2Easy TV, which is our YouTube channel. J2 dashboard, we'll reflect back on that a little later. I'm going to show you the bookable 15-minute video calls. So if you want to have a one-to-one call with me or Charlie, you can book those there. And then finally, we've got our support and FAQs area. So this is really important and probably going to be very useful if you are brand new to J2Journal and Parent Portal. I've rewritten all of the articles that are in here. So if you want to know more, for example, if you want to know about Parent Portal, it's going to give you some suggestions of articles, or we can look, and that will give you an overview. So using the Parent Portal, linking multiple children, the ones with parental access, I've written those specifically for parents. So they are designed from the parent's perspective. So you might want to signpost your parents on how to get to this, and teacher access. Okay, so there are articles on everything we're going to cover today, as well as this being recorded, and it will be added to YouTube later. So hopefully going forward, there is going to be a support mechanism in place that suits you and your needs, whether that is watching a video, reading a printable article, or jumping onto a call with me. Okay, so that can be found in the teachers area on your Launchpad. Okay, let's get started, shall we? So j2journal, it's probably our newest tool. It's been around for about 15 months now, and it is increasingly popular. You're probably wondering what it is. It is a tool for digital journaling, reflection and profiling. So it provides a feed of work that demonstrates progress over time for your pupils. So we can add in content, and there are a variety of different contents that we can add in: photos, videos, audio, tools, files that are created within Just2Easy and outside of Just2Easy can be added in as well. And over time, you will end up with a streamable feed of pieces of work. Okay, now as a teacher, you've got full overview of that. So you'll see all of your pupils, you'll be able to see all the journals. Parents and pupils will only see work that is tagged by their child or by them. Okay, so for example, Lottie here, Lottie will only see pieces of work on her feed that she's been tagged in. Okay, it's completely GDPR compliant. Privacy settings are high. It also allows for comments, so it can be used alongside the Parent Portal, or it can be used independently. So if you just want to use it between you and your pupils, you can. But I will show you later about how we can introduce that into the Parent Portal, and it'll give parents an overview of what's going on and what their children are creating in class. So let's have a little look, shall we? I'm going to give you an example. So j2journal is here. This is what the tile looks like. And this is our overview screen. So I can see, as a teacher, I can see all of the journals in school. Now this will change at some point, in that you will only see your own journals, but you'll have access to the whole school. We are aware that that is something that schools are pushing for, understandably, especially if you're coming from a big school. You might not want to see 20, 30, 40 journals. You might just want to see the ones that you're involved in. So just be aware that is potentially going to come out soon. But I'm going to show you, let's have a look at P1, for example. And here is my feed. These are pieces of work that I have posted or that the pupil has posted. Okay, and I can scroll through these pieces of work. I've got Rosie. I've got some phonics work here. I can see Rosie plus another. So if I click on this as a teacher, I can see Rosie, Willow and Otis were all tagged in this particular piece of work. So they might have worked alongside each other to create this particular document. I can scroll through, and you can see I've got different types of work. So here I've got a photograph. Now this demonstrates some fantastic maths, sorting, colour, number work, all taken in one photograph. So it doesn't have to be just digital work, it can be non-digital work as well. Okay, as a teacher, I can add in, I can contextualize this with a title and a description. And you can see here on the bottom, I've got the option to comment, like, and as a teacher, I've also added that into a folder, and I have tagged that against a progression framework. So we are going to have a look at all of that, don't worry. Okay, now just to show you, I'm going to scroll to the top. When you're first creating this, obviously there's not going to be much content in your journals, but the idea is by the end of the academic year, you will have a vast amount of work in here. And we have some filter options here along the left hand side. So I could, for example, filter according to user. So let's have a look at Rosie, for example. So I might just want to have a look at Rosie's content, and there we go. It might be I want to look at a specific area that I have. So I can create some folder structure within my journals, and I'm going to show you how to do that. But you can see here all the different areas that I've created for this particular journal. So things like artwork, creative writing, ICT, phonics, reading. So I might want to look at artwork in particular. So I've now streamed according to Rosie and just Rosie's artwork, so I can see that. So this is brilliant for middle managers and senior management as well, who are able to visualize and see what's going on in school in all the different aspects that you've created within your folder structure. And lastly, you've also got the option to filter according to date. So you might want to look in a particular month. You might want to compare September last year to September this year, for example, or September to July, to give that kind of idea of progression. So there's lots of options once you've created your journal for filtering. So let's have a look at how we can create a journal. Okay, now that is done by this big button that says new journal. Now this is the type of thing that you just need to do once, you know, at the beginning of an academic year generally, or when you first launch the tool. So we're going to create a new journal, and it's going to prompt me to select a class. Okay, so I'm going to use this little drop down menu here, and I've got all my registration classes. Now I've had a look at the registration form for this particular webinar, and I can see that the majority of you are joining us from Northern Ireland, so C2K colleagues out there, and there are a few Welsh teachers as well. So you are fortunate enough to have a managed service, so all of these registration classes should be set up. Okay, so you should be able to see all of your classes here, and you just select a class. Okay, so I'm going to select class 1. Now I can title this however I want, so it might be Miss Kimball's class, it might be class 1, might be class 1 2025 to 26, whatever you would like to call it. You can rename at any point, so that's not an issue. Just make sure it's something that the children might recognise as their class name. Okay. And then we've got some options here. So allowing parents to comment on journals. So you can switch that off if you wanted to. We can switch this off on a whole school basis as well. Now I'm going to click create, and that has created that journal, and it's jumped straight into journal. So it's assuming that you would like to add content to that journal straight away. Now I can also go back, and you can see there is that class that I've just created, and it will sit alongside all of the other journals that you have in school. Okay, so I'm going to open that up, and I'm going to add some content. So I can click on this new button here or this new button. They're both the same. I won't worry too much. Okay, and we're going to click new, and it's going to jump into the first bit. Now this is completely optional. You don't have to title or add a description, but sometimes it can be quite nice to add a bit of a context, especially if you're taking things like videos, photos and audio that might, in a standalone basis, might not make much sense. So for example, we could say, I haven't prepared this very well. Let's go for class trip, for example. We could say, we went to the farm today. Lottie saw a horse, for example. Okay. You don't have to, but you can add that in. And then we're going to click add file, and that is going to kind of prompt me to choose how I'm going to add in that content. What's nice is you can click photo, audio and video. These will open up those existing tools, so the camera tool and the microphone tool. So you can take photos through the duration of your lesson if that is your modus operandi. You want this open on a touchscreen device, for example, and you just want to take evidence as the class goes along. You can do that. You've also got the option to add a link. You can add from my files. Now, because I'm doing this as a teacher, that will open up into my files. So anything that I've added in, I can access. But I can also access content that the pupils have created and saved. Okay, so I can dip into the pupil files. And then lastly, I've also got upload. So I think some people think that j2journal is just for content that's made in Just2Easy, but of course it's not. We can upload content made elsewhere. So that will open up into my choose files, my file saver. So that will open up my laptop or my hard drive. If you're doing that on a touchscreen device, iPad, iPhone, that will then prompt you to obviously open up the photo library if you want to. So that is an option as well. Okay, but I'm going to click into pupil files, and then it's going to look within that class 1. So remember, I've selected class 1, so I'll only be able to see class 1 children in this journal. Okay, so I can then choose. So I'm going to go down, I'm going to find Lottie because she's my demo pupil. She's normally hiding somewhere here. There she is. So I'm going to click on Lottie, and that's going to open up Lottie's My Files for me. So as a teacher, I can see and I can add content on her behalf. So that's particularly useful if you are working with younger children who maybe can't do this process by themselves. You can see here Lottie's got a star certificate that she's created. She's got some work. She's done some homeworks. I'm going to scroll down. This is a picture of Lottie with her pony. So I'm going to click, and there we go. And then I'm going to click next. Now I can add multiple files from multiple areas. So it could be that you've saved some photos into your My Files and the pupils have added content or written about something. So it doesn't just have to be one particular file. I'm then going to click Next. And this is where I can tag pupils against these pieces of work. So if I was to select all pupils at the top, that means all pupils can see this particular file. Okay. For this instance, it's not appropriate, but for, you know, if this was a group photograph, for example, that would be appropriate. Just please bear in mind your photo permissions and have a sort of little discussion maybe as a staff team about how the photo permissions cover j2journal. Okay, so just be aware, if we add a photo or a file and we do tag all pupils, it means that all pupils will be able to see that particular file, and any associated parents will be able to see that file. So just be very mindful about those photo permissions. If you've got children that maybe don't have photo permissions for sharing, I would potentially leave them out of anything like this. Okay. I can scroll down and I'm going to find Lottie, and there she is. Now, as I said, you can tag multiple children. So it could be that, you know, Harry was in there as well, or Johnny. So I can tag as many children as I want to. At this point, I can just create, and that will create that journal entry. Or I do have another couple of steps that I can add in. So I'm going to click Next. And this is where we can structure our journals with folders. So I just click the Add Folder button. And I'm going to add in literacy, for example. Now I can color coordinate this folder if I want to, and just click Create. And I can do that as many times as I want. So I might have World Around Us, for example, have that a different color, create the folder. I might want ICT, or I might want something a bit more specific. So I might want to have, I don't know, digital photography, digital presenting, any of the desirable features you might be looking at in that term, for example. So that can make it a little bit easier, especially as a middle manager, if you're an ICT lead, for example, can make it a lot easier to then look back and sort of moderate certain units of work, for example. So have a sort of think about how you want to structure these folders for your journals. And there we go. So I can click Create Folder, and I might tag that. So I'm going to tick the folders that this particular piece of work will feature in, and I can tick more than one. So it might be ICT as well. Okay. And again, I can click Create, or there is another step if I want to add it in. So I can click Next. And this is brand new. We only introduced this in, I think, in June or July. And we can tag pieces of work against progression frameworks. So all of the usual progression frameworks should be added in there. Now, because I'm a trainer, I have access to all of them. The site should be clever enough to recognize where in the world you are. So, for example, my C2K colleagues out there, you should automatically have access to the SEER tasks. and the SIA framework. My hub teachers out there, you should have the DCF in there ready to go. Okay. If it's not, you can log a ticket at support@j2e.com and they will be able to sort that out for you, not a problem. It's worth noting as well, we can add in individual frameworks. So if there is another framework that you're working within, certainly we get quite a few requests from things like special needs schools or nurseries. We can add in additional independent individual frameworks. So again, support@j2e.com if that is something that is of interest. So I'm going to tag against the SIA framework and I'm going to use your Using ICT framework. And I might say this is level 1. You do have level 1 to 7 in there. Okay, so I'm going to stick with level 1 and I'm going to say, yeah, found and select information, explored and interacted with a digital device and expressed ideas. Okay, so brilliant. Some of your 5Es. And then if I click that X, that is going to save those particular frameworks against that piece of work. And then I click create. And there we go. There is our first journal entry. It is a photograph. I can see that Lottie is the one that's tagged. So Lottie is the only one that can see this and any associated parents if you have the parent portal set up. Just tick that. If a teacher name is in the right hand side, I know that that teacher has created this journal entry. So if there is no teacher name here, it means the child has created the content. Along the bottom of that particular file, I have my folders, so I can click and I can see which folders that's been tagged against. This little star here will show me that that has been tagged against a progression framework. So I can click and that's going to show me the particular targets that that has achieved. And I've also got the option with these 3 dots to edit any of that content. So if I click those 3 dots, I've got the option to edit content, users, folders, J2 review, so those progression framework targets, and the date if you wanted to. And obviously the delete option is there as well. So, for example, maybe I posted this on Monday, but it was from last week, so I could edit that date. Maybe I forgot that it was Lottie plus Harry, so I could edit the users. Perhaps I shared this photo by mistake, so I can delete that content. Okay, so you have full control over any content that is added in to J2 Journal. So hopefully that is clear so far. The other thing that I will just showcase, and I wasn't going to, but I've changed my mind in the spur of the moment. So I'm going to just log in as a pupil. Here we go. So this is Lottie. So this is the flip side. And I love this particular aspect of the tool because I think it really promotes independent use, independent showcasing, you know, especially if the children have created something that they are fantastically proud of. So I'm going to open up something that Lottie's created. So let's have a look. So I might say Lottie's been writing about, let's do this. So this is a JIT write. So she's done a bit of creative writing here. Okay. Now, when a journal is created and the class is added to it, they will have access to this button in JIT and J2 Create. So this is our Publish to Journal button. Okay, so if I click on that, it's going to ask me which journal to add it to. Now, what I would recommend, if possible, it's not always possible, create 1 journal per class. Okay, now the reason for that is for your youngest children, you don't really want to give them the option to have to choose a journal because they might, you know, this child's got 5 journals. They might post the wrong one. So it just means that, you know, a teacher might not look in the right journal and not recognize that that child has created some content. So if we only had 1 journal, then they would get they would just jump straight to the next page. So if I click, it would just add that to the journal. Okay, there wouldn't be that sort of choosing option. So that would be my recommendation. And I can click OK. So that's how easy it is for the children to self-select pieces of work and add those into the journal. Okay. Now, as a teacher, you're probably thinking, oh, I don't want pieces of work that just appear on the journal. don't worry. You have a safety net in place. It's called our moderation area, which is here. So if I refresh this page, you'll see there's a nice big purple number that appears here. And I can also see it from my launch pad. So if I refresh my page, you can see there's a number 2. So I can recognize that there is something, there is a piece of work or a comment that's been added either by a pupil or a parent, if you've got that enabled. And I also get a notification up here. So this little bell area, you can see there is a new entry. So there's lots of avenues of sort of notification that there is something that needs your attention. So I'm going to go back to my class and I'm going to click on my moderate. And that is going to hold that in that area until a teacher approves it. So any teacher can go into any journal and approve it. I can click edit if I wanted to edit it. I can approve just that solo file. So, you know, imagine there were 30 files, for example, that have been submitted. I can approve everyone one by one, or I've also got the approve all button at the bottom. So I can approve that. As soon as I've approved it, it will then showcase onto the journal. Okay, so it's a fantastic way of sharing digital content, but also non-digital content, and also moderating against various aspects such as progression frameworks. Okay, so it has multiple uses, and we do have schools that are using it in very, very different ways. Right, just a few recent updates. We are now offering the option to archive classes. We did just have archiving, but we've now differentiated between archiving and deleting. So you can archive a class, which means it is still visible to parents and pupils. It just means they can't comment or like. Okay, so that's great. I would generally recommend archiving each academic year. So, you know, starting afresh. You don't have to, but there are some intricacies in that. And I would sort of advise it on a school by school basis, but it really depends on whether your classes just move up a year with no changes. Okay, but generally the blanket advice is to archive each academic year. You can still access all of the content even when it has been archived. So just to show you, once it has been archived, it will show in the archive and deleted area. So you can still, for example, let's have a look at Miss Kimball's Year 1 class from last year. I can restore that and I can have a look at that should I need to. Okay, so that's how we can access archived journals. Now, this is something that we've added in, so viewing individuals across all journals. So you are able to just see an individual child across all journals. So if they've got archive journals or if they're part of more than one journal, you can access all of their content by clicking on a pupil's name. So to give you an example of this, let's open up my class that I've just created. And I'm going to click on Lottie. Okay, and if I click here, that then takes me to another page, and that shows me all of the work that Lottie's created. So there's Miss Kimball's class that we've just created, those 2 entries. But as I scroll down, here's C1, so she's part of class 1. Class 1. So any content that's been archived will showcase, and any content from any journal. So that's a really useful tool, and one that we've had requested a lot, because you might want to see a child's progress for years. Okay, and that's how you're going to do that. Okay, next update we've had, and again highly requested, is generating printable reports. So you can create reports for journals and individuals, and that is done by clicking on the 3 dots in the corner of the journal. So to give you an example, okay, we might want to create a report for Lottie. Now I can do lots of filtering things first if I wanted to. This is going to be quite a large document because I think there's about 60 journal entries in this. So it could be that I just want to see Lottie's work from this month, or I might want to see from this academic year. So I can input the dates. I can add this week, last week, this month, or last month. Okay, and if I click OK, that's just going to refine that now. So I shouldn't have 60 odd journal entries. And these 3 dots in the corner, that is where you're going to generate your report. So if I click on the 3 dots, generate report, I can filter what is shown in this report. So I might not want to see, for example, if I'm sending this out to parents, I might just want to have parent QR code and the date. Okay, or if it was for putting into books, I might want to remove parent portal QR code. Okay, so the parent portal QR code means that parents can scan it. QR code means that the staff can scan it. Okay, so if I click OK, this is what this generated report will look like. It does take a little while, so just bear that in mind. If you are creating huge reports from an entire year, it may well take a little bit of time. But here we go. So I can see this is Lottie. I can see all the targets. I can see who's been tagged in it. And I've got scannable, clickable QR code. So if I click that as a teacher, that will take me directly to that journal entry. Okay. Now, the reports can be printed. Shouldn't have closed that. Here we go. Let's try again. The reports can be printed, or if I click print, I've also got the option to save as PDF. So you don't have to print them. This would take a lot of printer ink, so just be aware of that. You do have the option to save as PDF. Okay, so that is one of our brand new, only come out in the last few weeks, hot off the press updates. So please have a look at those. Generally, they'll be more important towards the end of the academic year, but just be aware that that is something an option we offer. And coming soon, we are going to be offering the option of whether you want journals visible to parents. So if you're using the parent portal, you can choose which journals will be visible to parents. So that is in the workings. We're just working on how that looks to you as an end user, but just be aware that is coming. Okay. Right, so that is journal. We're going to talk very much around the parent portal now, okay? And this is the parent's view of the parent portal. So for those of you that may not know, you can link up parents to children within the parent portal. There is an app available both on the Android or the Google Play Store and on the App Store, so the iOS, iPhone, iPad, Apple Store. So those are downloadable. We would recommend that parents download those for best user experience, but they can access this through the desktop as well. Okay, so through any browser, so they don't have to have the app. This is what the interface looks like. So the parents have a streamlined view of what's going on in school. You can tailor this, so you can switch elements of this off if you're not using, for example, J2 stars. You can switch that off. Homework is accessible, so if you're not using that, you can switch that off. j2journal is there, so the parents will be able to see the journal. j2webby, so this is a bit of a legacy tool, but some schools are still using that. So again, you can switch that icon off if you're not using it. The upload file, so this button allows parents to upload content, so that's particularly useful if you're working with, I'm thinking, younger children, so nursery, or if you're from a special needs school, for example, which I was for a long time. This would have been really useful to know what the children were doing as a, a beginnings for discussion, or just to know maybe reports from an occupational therapist or, PT. It will be helpful for that homeschool communication. So there is the option to upload files. Messaging, so we can message parents through the parent. There's too many P's in this webinar. You can message parents through the parent portal. Parents are linked up to a child, but they can link up to multiple children, so they can switch between the children. And then finally, in the top corner, they've got their notifications and their user settings. So that is where they can change their passwords and their notifications. Yes, so they can choose which notifications they stay notified for. So that is what the parent portal looks like. Now, in terms of setting it up as a school, the first thing I would do, if you are considering this, is to have a conversation maybe as a senior leadership team or as a whole staff about really what elements you want parents having access to. And these are all the elements that you can switch on and off. So as I said, you can have messaging, you can switch that off. You can allow teachers, you can have it as a one-way messaging service, so you can switch off parent messaging. You can also configure the messaging, so you can choose which parents can contact which teachers. Okay, so that's a really important aspect. So you may well want to turn off access to the principal, for example, or just allow parents in class 1 to message the class 1 teacher. So that is done by the configure button. There is the option to switch off parents uploading files, parents viewing journal, parents commenting on the journal, parents creating journal entries, viewing learning conversations, viewing homework, J2 Stars and J2 Webby. Now, when we talk about the messaging service later, there is a message log. Okay, so this is something that you need to make teachers and parents aware of. Every message that is sent to and from J2 Message is logged in the J2 Message log, including deleted messages. So that is really important that you make stakeholders aware of that. So it needs to really be written into your acceptable usage policy if you can. We've just introduced a brand new lock to that. So you can lock that to a particular user. So for example, principal. So we've introduced that as a safeguarding measure. You know, if there are things that have been disclosed, maybe there's complaints that have come in, safeguarding issues that have come in, you wouldn't want potentially all of your staff able to download that. So that has been added in. So have a look at that. If you need support with that, just get in touch with us. So these are all found in J2 dashboard. So just to show you where J2 dashboard is, it's hidden now, it's in the teachers area. If it's not hidden already, it will be soon. So if we go to teachers area, that is where your dashboard is. And you can see the parent portal settings are just here. Okay, so you can switch these on and off as you see fit. So please just have a little sort of think about how you want your parent portal to look, what aspects you want your parents to access, and what sort of level of communication and interaction you'd like for your teachers and for your parents. Okay, so that's how we can personalize our parent portal. The next bit, once you've sort of had a think about what you want your parent portal to function like, is to actually add in your parents. Parents that have no access to the parent portal unless they are invited. So there are two main, well, there's two ways that we can invite parents. There's a QR code that you can either send out or retain in school for parents to come in and scan, or there is a manual email invite. So I'm going to go through both methods, but just be aware that, you know, there are two different methods. It's entirely up to you, and in some regards, it's up to whichever managed service you're within. So if we have any Glow users out there, you may well, so Scottish teachers, you may well need to take advice from your digital leads within the council, because there are some restrictions in place in terms of the use of QR codes. So please take advice with that. C2K, you are absolutely fine to send out these QR codes. Hub, again, I would sort of take advice. And anybody else, feel free to email me if there's anybody else that I've sort of left out. Right, so these, both the email invites and the QR codes are inputted in J2 dashboard. So we're going to stay within J2 dashboard. And it is done within the Parents Carers tab. Okay, so up here in J2 dashboard. So remember, J2 dashboard, we get to that through the teachers area tile on your J2 Launchpad. And then you can choose your class out the list. So we've got this drop down menu, all the classes should be listed there. Now I'm going to stick with my, I'm going to do a different class today. So let's do class, let's not do class 5 because there's no children in there. Let's do class 6, for example. In fact, let's try and find a class that haven't, here we go. So these haven't had a QR code generated. So I've got my three students in this class. So first of all, I'm going to show you how to generate a QR code. So we've got this create QR codes button. So I'm going to click on that. And that is going to generate a QR code per child. Okay. So these are printable. We recommend you print them. What you do with those is entirely up to you. So some schools retain those for data protection purposes. And host a sort of parent or meet the teacher meeting where the parents come in and scan these. Some schools send these home. As I've said, Scotland, that's not really something that you're allowed to do, but you can print these out and keep them within school. Okay, take advice from your digital leads. Now each child will have one of these. So for example, Davy here, maybe Davy's parents have 3 children at school. So Davy's parents would have 3 QR codes and they need to scan all 3. So there'll be 1 QR code per child. Okay. More than one parent or carer can scan these. So for example, Davy's mum, Davy's dad, and maybe Davy's nan want to be involved. All 3 of those people can scan this and register for their own account. So all 3 of those accounts will be separate. Again, if there's more than one child in school, those 3 parents and carers would need to have 3 QR codes. So hopefully that makes sense. It can get a little confusing, but just remember the QR code is per child. Okay, so you can print those out, send them home. The first time that's scanned, a parent or carer will need to register for an account. They only need to do it that first time that they scan or receive the email. Once they've registered, they can then scan the QR codes again, scan the subsequent QR codes, and those will link all those children into the same account. Okay, so that should have, let me just load this again. There we go. So once you've generated a QR code, you'll see in the invited column that those QR codes have been distributed. So you do have full control over this. So if, for example, you sent a QR code home to the wrong bag, for example, you can click on this X and that will revoke access to that QR code. So you do retain full control over these. Now, just to show you the email invite, it's very simple. You just click on the invite parent. This means you have to manually input the email address. Okay, so this is far more time consuming, slightly more secure, I suppose, as long as you write the email correctly. But that is an option for you. So you type out the email address and click invite, and they will receive an email invite. They just have a little button that they, or a link they need to click, and it will take them to the same registration page. Okay. Once the parents have scanned the QR code, so just to show you in class 1, if I scroll down, there we go. So once a parent has scanned the QR code, they will then be in this parents column here. So I can see Nicola Kimball, parent guardian. So she is linked up to Lottie's account. So if I wanted to, just to be particularly secure, I can revoke access to that QR code there, which means that QR code no longer works. I've also got the option to revoke access for that parent. So for example, maybe a parent or carer has abused the system for whatever reason. Maybe they've lost parental access legally. You can then revoke access to that parent or carer by just clicking on that X. I'm not going to, because that will revoke my access to my own parent portal, but that would just remove that straight away. So you do retain control over this at all times as staff. Okay, so hopefully that's quite clear about how it's linked up. There are step-by-step instructions within the help tile, which you can find in your teacher's area, and there are articles written specifically for parents as well that are in there. Okay, so that is what the email looks like. You can see they just click on the connect to your parent, they register, and that will link those parents to that account. Okay, now I'm just going to show you what the parent portal looks like from a parent's perspective before we get into the messaging. Okay, so the parent portal, this is the desktop version, obviously. The app version will look incredibly similar. It's just portrait as opposed to landscape. And the parent portal app will retain that sign-in process. They'll only need to sign in that once, and then it won't require them to sign in again. Okay, but this is the parent portal on the desktop, so they can navigate to parent.j2e.com. That's how they would access it on a desktop. However, just to show you, there's also a button to the parent portal off our home page, which is j2e.com, so our home sign-in page. So they can go to that and then click on the parent, and that's going to take them there. They then sign in. If it's the first time they're doing this, they can register. So this is the registration page: first name, surname, email address, and they choose their own password and agree to our terms and conditions. So it's very simple registration page, and then they can sign in. And this is their first screen. So you can see here that Lottie and Liam are in the same family, so the parents can access multiple children. Okay, and we can click in Lottie, and that is showing me all of the content that she has access to. Now, as a parent, I can click in j2journal, and that will give me the same view as the child. You've got the option to comment, like, and we can open any of these pieces of work, and it's going to open in a view only format, which is particularly useful because the parents can't edit anything once it's added into j2journal. It is just used for showcasing purposes, you know, to show them what's going on in class, and they can scroll down. Parents can see folders. They cannot see progression statements. We've removed that recently. So just, you know, rest assured, if you're adding any, you know, progression frameworks, statements that the parents do and pupils, they don't have visibility over that. And the parents will see all of the content from all of the journals. So if they are in multiple journals, they'll just see a feed in reverse chronological order. Okay, so that's what the parent portal looks like. Now I'm going to show you messaging. In fact, no, what I'm going to do first, because I've got a little bit of time before I show you the messaging, I'm just going to show you how the parents can personalize their own notifications, because that's a question we get asked often by teachers, having been asked by parents. So within the parent app, there is a little cog. Within the desktop, they click on their name. So it's just ever so slightly different. And when we click on our name and go to My Settings, that is where the parents can choose. They can choose their display name, for example. If they need to swap their email address, they can. If they want to choose different language. Here is the notifications area. Okay, now there's two different types of notification. And it kind of depends on how they're accessing the parent portal. So push notifications are for parents that are using it through the app. So a push notification is the banner that you get up that pops up on your close screen or your home screen. So that generally a little thing that pops up at the top to say that you've had a new journal entry or a new homework or a new message. And you'll also get that little red number that appears on the corner of the app. So those are your push notifications. So you can see we can have push notifications for new messages, assigned homework, J2 stars that have been awarded, journal entries, and journal comments. So the parents can tailor those. They might just want to have push notifications if any new messages appear or new journal entries. Then email notifications does exactly what it says on the tin. It will send an email notification to the email address that has been registered with by the parent. Okay, so if they've changed their email address but haven't updated us, you know, and they're saying I used to get email notifications and now I don't, that may well be the reason, and they can switch those on and off. So they might want both, they might want one or the other. So that's how they can change their notifications. I think that's quite an important thing to know as a teacher. Then finally, we're going to talk about how we can message our parents. Okay, so we use the tool called J2 Message. So this is a tool that we actually designed as a teaching and learning tool during the pandemic, funnily enough. And I still think it is still a fantastic teaching and learning tool, but it's not what we're here for today. But just bear that in mind. It's a great tool for teaching appropriate online communication with your class, especially for slightly older children. I'm just going to leave that there. But let's have a look. This is our J2 message interface. I'm going to open it up in a second, but just to highlight some of the main areas. So our discussion boards are here along the left-hand side. So we can choose a class. And underneath that class, so I'm just going to zoom in a little bit so you can see here we've got class 1, and I want to message all the parents and carers that are linked to class 1. So I can do that, and I can see that this is the message board that I am typing in. So class 1 parents, carers. The text box is at the bottom, so we do have some formatting tools here. We've also got the ability to add sound and or attachments. So if you're sending out newsletters, photographs of what's gone on in class, files that the kids have created, you can add those as well. And we've added in the record sound function. So that was something that's added in particularly for parents that might struggle with literacy, for example. So I'm thinking about your EAL parents, your new arrivals, maybe parents that you know struggle with dyslexia or SEND themselves. We had quite a few of those parents at my school. So you can record audio messages instead. You've got the hit send button, and then you've got a feed of existing messages. So let's have a quick look, shall we? So from J2 launch, I'm going to open up J2 message, which is here. It may well be in a different space on your launchpad, but that's what the icon looks like. And you can see here, it will open up automatically into the youngest class. So it might be your nursery class, might be your P1 class. You can switch the different classes. So I could go to P3, for example, or class 5. Now, if there are no linked or connected parents, it will show underneath. Okay, so some schools are just using this as a tool for contacting children in nursery and P1. Some schools are using it across the board. It's entirely up to you who you link your parents or which parents you link up. Now I've clicked on class 1 and I've got my message all parents and carers. So at the moment you can see this is the class 1, so that means I'm messaging the children. If I click here, that is now messaging all the parents and carers. I've also got the option, instead of a class, to message the entire school. So that is this discussion board here. Again, that is all the children. Message all parents and carers. That is all of the parents and carers, funnily enough. Now, the last thing, and we are aware that this isn't ideal and we're looking at ways to make this more obvious. If you want to message an individual parent, you do need to click on this little button here. And as I've said, we know that gets missed a lot. We are looking at an interface and how we can change that and make that more suitable. Okay, so it is that a change will come, but we can, for example, look for Lottie and I can message her parent. So you can message individual parents. Now, if Lottie has more than one parent, they will be listed, or more than one carer, and each of these will be independent of each other. Now, the reason we've kept that is because of the instance of acrimonious relationships for whatever reason. So those are individuals, so just be aware if you're messaging multiple parents that they won't be privy to each other's conversations. But I'm going to message the parents and carers in class 1. So I'm going to click class 1, message parents and carers. I'm going to type a message out here. So I'm going to say, welcome back to school. This is class 1. And I'm going to record an audio. So I'm going to click record, very simple, record. Welcome to class 1. I'm going to add that in, so that is going to link at the bottom. I can also use speech to text if I wanted to, or add in an attached file. So if you've got letters, for example, or something they've done at school today, or a presentation that you want them to have a look at. You can see I've been prepping for my live lesson on Thursday with all the autumn stuff. So I'm going to try and find, here we go. So for example, maybe this was a picture of the children all doing something. I can send that, and I'm going to click send. And that is going to send to all the parents and carers that are linked. I don't know why that's gone halfway up. There we go. I can play that. Good. There we go. And that has sent to the parent or carer in that class. Now, just to show you the flip side of that, so let's just open up. This is Lottie. So if I refresh her page, because she's in class 1, she's now got a message, so her parent or carer can have a look at that. And when they've opened up the messaging service, there's a little green number. So she's actually got 2 messages. She's got one from Miss Kimball and from class 1. So if I click on that, now I have enabled reply to teacher. You can switch that off if you want this as a one-way messaging service. You can. That's done in J2 dashboard, remember. But I've got this button that says reply to teacher. If you switch the messaging back to teachers off, that button will disappear. Okay, I'm going to click reply to teacher, and what that's going to do is it's actually going to move that reply and that message from class 1, so a whole class discussion, to a one-to-one. So your parents will never be able to message within that sort of wider discussion board. So I think that's really important to note. You're not going to have a parent, you know, saying, well, I came to talk to you and moany, and all the other parents see that. Okay, it does move to a one-to-one. So we go to reply to teacher. There, you can see there it goes to Miss Kimball J2E, and I can then reply and say thanks, for example, and I can hit send. Okay, and that teacher will get a notification that there was a little thing that flashed up there. They'll get a little notification. They should have had a notification that appears in the notification center, and I can see it's not very clear, but that little green number shows I've got a message, but I will get a notification on my Launchpad that I've got a little message that is showing there. Okay, so you will be notified, and we can look at that message. There we go, it shows at the top, so your most recent messages fly to the top, and I can see it's Nicola Kimball. And there we go. So I can continue that conversation on a one-to-one basis if I needed to. Okay. So that is the sort of basics of messaging and messaging your parents. So hopefully that has been useful. Here are some contact details should you need to get in touch with us. So edteam@j2e.com, that comes through to Mary, Charlie and myself if you've got any questions. Facebook and X, we post on those most weeks, so have a look. That's sort of competitions and announcements and training that we're doing, live lessons, and everything that we do is recorded on YouTube. Okay, so that is our handle. And I'm going to open up the floor to any questions that we might have. So thank you so much for attending. If you don't have any questions, I hope you've enjoyed the training. I hope it's been useful. I will leave the chat open should you have any questions that you need answering. If not, thank you so much, and we hope to see you for another training soon.